In late 2020, Safe Worldwide made a trip to Yellowstone to see the elusive wolves that were the descendants of the first packs reintroduced to Yellowstone in 1995. We sat down with Dr. James Halfpenny, acclaimed mammal tracker, author, and educator on the topic of wildlife tracking and conservation. We discussed the Wolf Reintroduction project in Yellowstone and the fate of wolves now that they were removed from the U.S. Endangered Species List. Jim, can you tell us how you got started in the field of wildlife tracking and conservation?
Well, I grew up in the outdoors. By the time I was 14 years old, I was helping people learn how to track animals because I did that. Parents babysat me by sending me off to the river while I worked very hard, and that allowed me to grow up in the outdoors of western Nebraska, eastern Wyoming, and I became interested in the animal species. Every single book in our library, it wasn't a big library, I knew page by page the field guides to mammals, the field guides to reptiles, the field guides to birds. So this has been with me all the time. And rare animals, well, they're that much more interesting. I go after rare animals, and I've made a career of going after rare animals and teaching other people how to find whatever's rare in their area.
What were some of the first species of animals you got involved with?
Well, my great love was always bears, and still is bears. But anything that's got big canines and lots of fur, carnivores, I'm very interested in. But I also get to work with all the other mega prismatic carnivores, the wolf, the cougar, the bears, the grizzly bears, lynx, wolverine.
Prior to the settlement of the American West, many species of animals roamed the land in great numbers. Animals like bison, bears, and wolves, to name a few. So what happened to the animals, and wolves in particular, during the 1800s?
When people landed in North America, it was wild, very wild to them, and they wanted to make it their home. They wanted to tame it. They wanted to get rid of bears and wolves, things they considered dangerous. As people moved west, we had a policy called Manifest Destiny, and that said, tame the wilderness and make it your own. So as they went west, they tried to get rid of the predators. Now, one of the predators having a history from the old world was the wolf. And that history from the old world, well, people considered this to be an evil animal. A bear wasn't evil, but a wolf was evil. So not only was it a predator, a carnivore, it was also evil. And so they were at the top of the list. And across the United States, we did an excellent job of trying to eradicate this animal. We killed it in all manners that we could think of, including poisoning it all over. And pretty soon, by the 1920s to the 30s, we had basically got rid of all the wolves in the lower 48 states, except Minnesota.
Wolves were eradicated from the lower 48 states. After many decades, it was determined that apex predators like wolves were not only beneficial, but necessary for the ecological balance of the environments they once roamed. What would you say to those of us that believe that delisting the gray wolf as an endangered species is detrimental to their long-term survival?
Ecosystems exist without wolves. We don't have to have wolves for ecosystems. But an ecosystem that is as complete as it was when people arrived here, the Native Americans coming through at the end of the Ice Age, we as ethical people can make ecosystems go back to a closer level of completeness to what was there. And to me, that is the strongest reason for bringing back the animals.
25 years ago, wolves were reintroduced to Yellowstone. That program was so successful that on October 29, 2020, they were removed from the Endangered Species Act. Can you tell us a little bit about the significance of that decision?
Today is a monumental day for the Endangered Species Act. We invented the Endangered Species Act, the first country in the world to do that. And the idea behind the Endangered Species Act is we will take an animal that's in trouble, we'll put the might of the federal government under it and lift it up and increase that population until that animal can survive in perpetuity. Then we let the states manage the animal. The federal government doesn't manage it anymore. Well, the wolf is one of our first animals that we got listed under the Endangered Species Act. And we've spent since 1974 trying to protect that animal and bring it back to a level where it could survive with proper management. And today, well, yesterday actually, this is October 30th, yesterday the federal government finally decided that we had recovered the wolf. And as a recovered animal now, there is no more federal protection in the lower 48, or Alaska for that matter, for the gray wolf.
Where do you think this is all going to go?
This leaves those of us that are pro-wolf, lupophiles. Lupo is a Greek word for wolf, and phile is love, and we are the wolf lovers, and we want to guarantee that this animal exists into perpetuity into the future. And there's certain steps that we need to do at this point now. First is learn. Learn everything that you can about the wolf. Go to the websites. Google the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service webpage and go there and learn everything you can. Google the International Wolf Center, who has excellent pages on where we must go now. So your obligation is to learn. Your second obligation is to share good knowledge. In other words, educate the other people around there. Your third obligation is you need to watch the states and see that they develop management plans that are favorable to the wolf and take care of the wolf. So whatever state you're in, if there are wolves there, Google it. Find your state. Learn about your state's management plan. You, as a pro-wolf person, have to see that we manage wolves without the influence of myths, many of which aren't true, without the influence of opinion, which is not scientifically backed up by biology, and we manage it within the realms of what we can do as a society.
What would you say about the delisting of endangered species as being detrimental to their long-term survival?
Delisting is one of the most important tools we as Americans have for protecting our wildlife. And the process of the delisting is the Endangered Species Act. We invented the Endangered Species Act to get animals to the point that they could be managed by the states. States traditionally have owned the animals. But any management process, whether the federal government is doing it or a state is doing it, has to be watched by the people, and it has to be controlled by the people in that society to make sure that it's being done fairly to the animal and protecting the animal. So if you're young, get involved. Go to that Google I mentioned. Look up the sites I've talked about and learn what your state is doing. Your state doesn't have wolves, so what? Pick a state that does. Learn what it's doing. You can comment. Usually nowadays we can comment online, but you can certainly write a letter. Keep an eye on things. That's your job.
Jim, what would you say to someone who's interested in getting involved in helping or working with wildlife?
Start young. Read everything you can read. Go to your library. Get on the internet. Get the information. Try to find out where there are projects going on with your local wildlife management group. Contact that wildlife management group and see if you can volunteer there. Start building a collection of things that you have done. Go down the river and see if you might find a footprint, if you might photograph an animal. Learning about animals through photography is a very strong tool, but you've got to be proactive and you've got to work very hard, because there are other folks out there that are trying to get in on wildlife management too. And as soon as you get old enough, take the classes in school. Make sure you get all the classes. Yes, it's fun to have a class, say on mammals, but you have to have the other classes. Today you need computers, you need math, you need good language skills, you need good internet skills. And as you go through college, you don't want to be narrow and focus, say, just on mammals, but you have to become a well-rounded person in order to put those skills to use for the wildlife.
What are your thoughts on climate change and its impact on the many species already on the brink of extinction?
I've been involved with climate change since we first started about climate change, creating the second longest record in the world. Yes, it's real. It's very real. Now, in terms of animals, it depends on where you might be. If you're in cold regions, climate change is much more powerful. So if you happen to be a polar bear, you're losing your cold environment very quick. You're losing your ice very quick. If you're in the middle of the grain belts of, say, Kansas and Nebraska, where the change is not too big a change in reference to staying warm, it's not going to affect you as quick. So what we got to do is identify those animals that are most going to be affected by climate change. And of course, our poster child is the polar bear. And if you come to the Rocky Mountains, an animal like the wolverine is going to be affected by warming and loss of snow. But little animals, the little cuddly pika, who is a member of the rabbit family, and it counts on having cold in high areas, well, their populations are going to be in danger. Climate change is real. Climate change is hitting our animals fast. And we, as concerned citizens, must protect animals as animals, but we must protect planet Earth by working towards doing everything we can to ameliorate climate change.
What actions can people take to help stop the effects of climate change?
What do you do to help alleviate climate change? Well, first off, be a good citizen. Recycle everything you can. Don't waste stuff. Second off, don't be an individual. Join. You as an individual don't have a lot of work, but there are many groups out there, local, regional, national, international, that you can join and put your little amount into there. Maybe it's just dues, and that organization then is in a more powerful position to work. Thirdly, start paying attention to politics. A lot of people don't like that word, but it's there. Find out who on the political arena is pro alleviating climate change and start supporting them. Volunteer for them. If you can, even donate to them. You've got to become active, and the ways to become active are individual actions, joining, and playing the political game.
We couldn't agree more. So Jim, any final words? How about to that person who wants to be the next Jim Halfpenny?
Quite honestly, I have been so very, very fortunate. No one will ever get to do what I've done, all of what I've done. And that makes it tough for people growing up. I read every book on mountain climbing, every book on polar exploration, every book on the animals, and then I went out and I pretty well lived it. People aren't going to get that chance. So make whatever chances you can to be outdoors.
Are there any final words?
I would hope folks go out and work for planet Earth, saving animals, alleviating climate change, work hard, but don't get tied totally to that. Go out and have fun out there.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yellowstone has been called the Serengeti of the Americas, and Safe Worldwide encourages everyone to come visit and see the beautiful landscape and also the extensive wildlife, including wolves, that you will see here and nowhere else in the world.